welcome to the Hot Tag Podcast. Kind of a sadder edition of the Hot Tag Podcast, but we'll get to that. I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
Woo! I'm Tom.
That was good, man. That was good.
Thanks. Thanks.
I don't know why you did it, but you know.
Unnecessary.
You always got to bring attention to yourself, man.
That's me. I'm the
That's
asshole.
Yep. But well, a lot has kind of happened since we did a show 2 weeks ago after the Rumble. I don't really know how the storylines haven't really advanced that greatly, but news has been rough. We got last week we got the announcement of Bret Hart and colon cancer. Is it
Pancreatic cancer.
pancreatic cancer?
No. Shit.
Some kind of cancer.
It's like the #1 killer in men.
Prostate
Cancer. That's what it was.
Prostate cancer.
With Bret Hart, since his retirement, it feels like every 2 years something awful more happens to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really has just gotten, you kind of, I don't want to say you joke about the Hart family curse, but
Whew.
there's really something to it.
Yeah.
At this point. And I mean, that's, Tom messaged me because it all came out. I saw it around the same time. I don't know if Mike saw it around the same time. I'm not ready. And that just hit me hard. Bret was kind of the guy that you just, like, not that he was gonna be around, forever or whatever, but it's like you just didn't think that was ever really like a possibility, aside from old age, I guess.
Well, and it's because he wasn't known as one of those party guys. He wasn't like Hall and Nash, who popped, like, they knew how many Xanax they could take before wrestling a match. They'd be like, oh, I'll be 10 minutes in so I can hit my finish and be in the locker room before the Xanax kicks in. Then I can start drinking Jack. Like,
that was not Bret at all.
No. I mean, I know he admitted to taking roids in the early days, like the early 80s, to get bigger than he was, but then he was off them. But everybody was doing that.
Yeah.
But
if you watch any of those old clips, you definitely see that he got juiced up. To make it to the big time. But with everything else with him, I mean, the stroke, the other little nagging injuries and different things, and also he's of that age where that's one of those susceptible things. It's one of those #1 killers, but it's also very treatable when it's caught the right way.
Yeah.
And it sounds, according to his post, it sounds like they caught it, early enough. I believe he underwent surgery today to either have it removed or to go in and do whatever they could, because I saw a bunch of well wishes on his Facebook and on Twitter and stuff like that from other wrestlers and fans. So my guess is that he had surgery today to get the treatment started.
Okay.
But I mean, that's, like you said, Chris, that's one of those that's like a punch in the gut. It was like, I remember, and I will forever remember exactly where I was where I read that Roddy Piper was dead. I mean, it was just like I was at dinner with my family, and I walked out in the kitchen to get something, and I popped up my phone, and it was trending on Facebook, and it was like, oh my God, you're shitting me! Like, no, like.
Well, that was.
I believe I even yelled,
that
"Oh,
was
no,"
last
and my
year.
dad was like, "Is everything okay?" And I went, "Yeah, I mean, I guess," but I was like, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, how old was he?" And I said, like 60, 61.
Yeah,
I said
that was
only a
like
couple
last year.
Yeah.
That was like last year when I sent off that text message to both you and Mike, like, dude, Warrior just died.
Oh, God. Because you texted in the middle of the night, and I think I woke up and read it, and I was like half awake, and I'm like, whatever, man. Like, that's not funny. And then I woke up in the morning, and I'm like, are you for real? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, shit. That's like...
Yeah,
that was huge. So
in the past 2 years, I mean, it's been Warrior and Piper were the two. I think were the two ones that hit home, and Dusty,
right?
That hit home. I mean, we've lost people. We've lost wrestlers over every year, and I think those were the hardest in a while. Those were probably I'm going to say since Eddie.
Well, also just because of the big name.
Yeah.
And we had gone through that point, too, where so many guys died, and so many guys for a long time. For a couple of years, it seemed like every month and a half somebody died.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that note, I read a tweet from Curtis Axel. Today's 13 years since Mr. Perfect, and I'm like, wow. Has it been 13 years? And I'm like, sweet Jesus, it was 2003. Because he had just come back. He was a surprise guest in the Royal Rumble in like 2002, and he was supposed to like get another run. Like that was going to be, they were going to do this.
And then there was the plane ride from hell.
Right, and he got fired after that.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of went downhill because he was dead like 6 months later. And I'm like, well, that probably put him back onto drinking and doing coke, which is sad, but, it just, yeah. So definitely like a blow to the stomach when I read that. And just, I don't know. I mean, I feel like he can do it and get through it because they caught it early enough, but I'm not sure I'm ready for a 10-bell salute for Bret Hart. I struggled with Piper, I mean, I remember struggling with Owen, but that was different.
Owen was different. I mean, Owen was
prime. He was still prime.
Not only that, but the way it happened.
Yeah, right. That's.
I mean, there was a stretch where Will and I were getting the pay-per-view like every month.
Right.
And that was the one pay-per-view we said, I just don't feel like doing it tonight.
Right.
So I didn't watch. But I was kind of watching the results online.
Right.
And that was back when, the online wrestling community was really in its infancy.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we're not the juggernaut that we are now.
IWC.
But I just remember like the headline coming up, like pay-per-view is stopped, Owen Hart in accident, and I was like, okay. And as I'm just watching this thing slowly update over over 15-20 minutes or so, and just that being what happened, that the harness, the harness snapped or whatever happened, and he fell to his death. I mean, that was
right.
That was that is beyond anything that I could ever feel again, I think, as far as a wrestler passing goes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was... I mean, I remember, and it was at a time, because that was, what, 99? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 1999, which is obscene that it's almost 20 years old. But it was one where, like, I used to, because I was poor and didn't buy the pay-per-views, I'd watch them scrambled.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would do that occasionally too when I was a kid.
Watch them scrambled, and like if you messed with the tracking a little bit, sometimes you'd get like a pretty decent clear stretch.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing Jim Ross say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Owen Hart is dead," and like, what? No. And then
you were just a child back then.
Shut your mouth! I was a senior in high school. Maybe I was a junior. It depends. Yeah, because that was May of '99. So yeah, I was a junior.
Yeah.
Sorry. You guys were already out of college and like working and you know I had
I had my man's job then.
Drinking our pain away at that point.
You had beards and long hair at that point in time, and I was just thinking about, wow, I can't wait to graduate from high school. Life is going to be fantastic.
Wah, wah.
It's like those Bane from Batman memes.
Yes.
I was shaped and molded by wrestling tragedy. I was already a man when Owen Hart died.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, it sounds to me like he's at least got himself some decent physicians, and obviously medical care has changed a lot since back in those days. Not just for the guys, but in general too. So hopefully things work out well. Like I said, I'm not really sure I'm ready for that one. Not anytime soon. Especially if eventually they put Owen into the Hall of Fame. Like, I feel like Brett. I feel like Brett needs to be the one that inducts him. Because obviously his wife has nothing. She doesn't want anything to do with it. I heard that the DVD they put out is basically recycled footage and interviews with a few people, but that's it. That I guess she didn't give full access to like home movies and you know what I mean? So she didn't go along with that. And as Brett likes to say, that she can be quite a bitch. And I guess, I don't know. I can't blame her, but at the same time, her kids are now grown and they should know, everything that Dad.
Yeah, I mean, I understand her.
Well, she doesn't.
I understand her point of view. I do.
She doesn't want Vince making money off of him, and I totally understand that.
And I totally understand that as well. But he deserves the recognition.
He does. And I'd also love to see him in a video game, like an official, not a DLC or like a, I want him to be in a game.
Yeah.
And now,
and
like
and as wrestling fans in the past couple years, the things that we said never say never to.
Right. A lot of them have come true.
A lot of them have come true. The Brett, going back to Brett, the Brett Shawn Michaels reconciliation.
Which I still think that's the greatest work in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
That's for another discussion.
That is for another discussion.
Well, I was gonna say which way, that they were fighting that long, or that they made up. It was just
that the screw job itself was a work.
Ah.
I think that is the greatest work in the history of pro wrestling, because everything was so perfect that it was almost too perfect to be like that.
That it gave us the biggest heel in all of
pro wrestling. Right. Not just that, but like the camera angle of the finish and the fact that the camera was immediately right there for Brett. Vince was there. Like, there's too many question marks for me to go, this was a legitimate, like, screw job.
Now you're getting into like saying like the Vince McMahon paid Vince Russo to go to WCW and tank the whole thing.
Vince Russo did that himself because he's a terrible writer. No, that's I am not gonna say that at all. Russo was the one that put Mrs. Bagwell in a cage match. No.
Didn't he give Viagra on a pole?
I did see Viagra on a pole. That was pretty terrible.
Viagra on a pole.
Then there was everything on a pole. That's what it was.
There was everything on a pole.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
That was the WCW staple for a while.
I mean, unfortunately, the only thing that wasn't on a poll that should have been was the Nitro Girls. Whoa.
Whoa.
And most of them are probably on a poll now.
Yeah, well.
Except for the one that married Shawn Michaels.
Oh, that's right. Well, she may have been at that time.
She may have been at that time, but
yeah, which is why they would have met.
I think she left before that. I think she met Shawn and left before.
Before she was.
Before it was Nitro Girls on a pole night.
Nitro Girls on a pole night. I love it.
She met Shawn and Jesus or something at the same time, right?
Well, I mean, Shawn Michaels was tag team partners with God once.
Yeah. He was.
Boo! That was.
Did they win that match?
No, I believe Vince McMahon beat God. If you don't remember that.
That's right. I don't remember that. I've kind of blocked that out. I vaguely remember it, but I'm kind of
a spotlight that came down to the ring and Vince laid on top of it. And he considered himself a winner or something. It was almost as bad as when Al Snow teamed up with Head and Jerry Lawler stuffed a bottle of Head and Shoulders up it so that he could pin it. And I was like, wow.
I loved that bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like one of those, because she doesn't have shoulders. Okay, all right. I see what you did there.
That was a good thing. The whole, I loved the whole, and we're getting kind of off our topic, but it's a good, it's a light part of the topic. I loved the Al Snow and Head gimmick.
The only problem with the Al Snow and Head gimmick was it created the ad wrestler here with inanimate object that he talks to here.
Yeah, like Chavo and
the hobby horse, Poco.
Pepe the hobby horse.
Oh my God!
Pepe
and of course, Lil Jimmy.
Lil Jimmy. Actually, Lil Jimmy.
God.
Why is he stuttering again?
I don't know. But it's the little things they do together are hilarious.
It's for the bit.
Yeah.
I think it just has something to do with black guys. It must, because he did it when he had Booker as a partner.
Ooh.
So I think he's allergic to black guys or something.
I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, friend. I was.
I'm not touching that with a Nitro Girl on a 10-foot pole.
Ooh! Boom! Winner, drink.
Why did he start stuttering? Because the NWO threw him into an
electrical box.
A breaker
right,
box.
So that made sense that he would spaz, but then all of a sudden, apparently he got shocked and then he got Tourette's because he'd be like ass, and you're like, wait, so you got shocked and Tourette's set in?
It was that was a weird thing. But it was fun, and it worked. It worked with Booker, and at this point, it's given Truth something to do, I guess. So
I'm still waiting to hear the my bad, that one's on me, because it seems like that's his thing now. He's the Steve Harvey of WWE.
Yeah.
Yep. So, moving on. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
The big thing this week was the Daniel Bryan thing.
Yeah,
was the Daniel Bryan thing, and
where the writing had kind of been on the wall, and we had talked about it, and as much as I wanted him to come back, the more and more we talked about it, it just seemed like the health wasn't going to allow it.
Yeah,
right.
And I mean, I joked with Tom, off the air because I was very firm in the corner of we are not going to see him wrestle again, and
right.
I joked and said to Tom, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so with the Barry Horowitz pat on the back, but yeah,
that's 3 in a row.
That's a callback to 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, but it's like the last 3 episodes we've talked about Barry Horowitz at some point in time. It's like an Easter egg.
Are we becoming the Barry Horowitz podcast?
No.
We are the Barry Horowitz podcast.
Maybe that's a song we'll play on the way out.
There was all this stuff going on, and but yeah, he kept hearing this, and he was getting cleared by these doctors, but WWE. Then I hadn't heard this until the whole thing was announced Monday. That supposedly it asked for his release.
Yeah, it was kind of like similar to that Rey Mysterio situation.
To Rey Mysterio.
Right, and he wanted his release because if they weren't going to clear him, he wanted to wrestle in the Indies while he still had notoriety and such like that. But WWE has now redone what the contracts say, and they now say, like, if you have a major injury that sidelines you, your contract is frozen. Like, you're still getting paid, and we're paying you, but we're not getting return on our payments, then you're not going to be cut loose to go make money elsewhere while we're out, so many hundred thousands of dollars. And that's what happened with Rey Mysterio, because I believe Mysterio's contract actually expired while he was rehabbing his 9th knee surgery or something. And WWE enacted some clause where they could automatically renew it because he had been absent and not performed for so long that they had a stipulation that said, because we've paid you consistently and you have not performed, we have the right to automatically renew your contract so that you can't just go to TNA or wherever you want to go because we're not going to walk away from an investment, which is a sound business thing. Yeah. Totally understand that.
It is, especially with somebody like Brian, who was white hot. I mean, he had that feud, and unfortunately it kept getting derailed by him being hurt.
Right.
But I think even if it, in a way that Vince having that in his contract probably saved his life.
That's probably true.
Because had he gotten his release, and had he gone and wrestled for Ring of Honor or
New Japan
or TNA, and he could have gotten another concussion.
Right.
I think if he went anywhere, it would have been Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And I still think if he gets, depending on now what they wind up changing with his contract, if once things loosen up a little bit, I could see him doing some appearances for Ring of Honor shows down the road at some point to help bring up their marketability.
Since they seem to have a working relationship with WWE, WWE is just stealing their guys.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what happened with ECW too. I mean, that's but yeah, I mean, because supposedly he was having like concussion-induced seizures.
Yeah, and he wasn't reporting that. Well, I mean, he wasn't telling anybody except for his wife, and of course she wasn't going to say anything because she knew if they told any of the medical staff, immediately it would be, no, you're done. That's it. Because, as much as everyone's upset about this, which I am, WWE is being very proactive with their concussions now.
I mean, you have to be because it got so out of hand. You see the same thing with the NFL now.
Right.
And as much as I will miss him wrestling, I would rather see him be healthy than die the way some of these guys with the concussions have. Right. The same thing when you're looking at some of the NFL guys that are talking about retiring this year with Calvin Johnson and Marshawn Lynch, and some of these guys are like, we're gonna, these, and I'm hearing, internet hum of, these guys still have some good years left in them, but it's like, are you going to trade a few good years there to, for crippling yourself or killing yourself or being in what kind of awful situation you're going to put yourself in?
I mean,
so I can't begrudge Daniel Bryan, especially still being young, especially being at the point where he's going to want to start a family.
Right. And
get as healthy as he can, and he still might get, it affects everybody else. It affects everybody differently. That somebody could be, have some have several concussions and concussion issues that aren't a major problem, and guys can just have one or two and then have that constant whatever it is that drives them nuts.
The CTE that sets in.
Yeah.
Where you get the water on the brain and stuff, and then you get lesions and you go insane. Like you lose it, and it like gets into dementia and all that stuff. We've seen many football players, and they end up committing suicide because they can't handle it. So I really feel like WWE is being proactive about concussions going forward, and even over the last 2 years. With the wellness plan, even though everyone thinks that's a joke, I really feel like they actually do care now compared to, 20 years ago. You got a concussion.
10 years ago.
Yeah, well, 20 years ago. I mean, yeah. Let's talk about the match that I can't even watch anymore between Mankind and The Rock, where he hits him 10 times with a chair while he's handcuffed, like straight headshots. I cannot even, like, it is so hard to watch that, having met Mick and knowing how nice of a guy he is and in what bad physical form he is now. Like, that his career was definitely cut short because of all his crazy antics. But, I mean, I went back on the network and watched that, and it was just like, it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to just look away, and I would hear the sound of, the chair hitting his head, and I'd just be like, ow. Like,
well, with that match, I always think about the Beyond the Mat documentary where they feature that match and they're showing his kids in the stands crying.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I mean, it was like the Passion of the Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Watching this man get the shit kicked out of him for entertainment. Not even the shit kicked out of him. It was just to be beaten with an object.
Right.
Yeah.
And I miss a good chair shot to the head, but it's just, same thing with football. I miss some of the crazy, some Ronnie Lott style pop hits, but you can't. It turns out that it's awful, and I would rather not see sports that I love have to go away or continue to kill people, than to keep going in this direction. And more awareness of it is going to generate more people are going to be interested in it, more people are going to study it, more money is going to go towards it, and maybe there's going to be cures, and maybe there's going to be remedies down the road, and the sacrifice of the lives is going to make up for something in the future.
Right. And I think part of that, and this is fantastic because, I mean, it's not really mentioned a whole lot, but Chris Nowinski, who was a wrestler for 18 months, and he had 6 concussions, and now, I mean, he had a degree from Harvard, and that was his kind of deal. He went back to school and got his doctorate in, brain, I don't even, it's but that's what his thing is he now studies the long-term effects of concussions on athletes. And he even, I saw an interview on, I think it was 30 on 30 on ESPN or something like that. And I remember them sitting down and people were the guy interviewing was I don't remember you in the ring. He goes, I was in there such a short time and I got out because, he goes, I still get headaches now, 14 years later. He's like, I have days where it doesn't stop. And he goes,
and he started that concussion, trauma, brain damage type of talk years ago. He was one of the first big guys to come out and say, or one of the first names that you saw talking about it, saying this is an issue and we have to do something for these athletes, because he was one of them. There was nobody else there. Especially all those guys at the NFL were I don't want to say anything bad. This is where my bread's buttered. This is where the money's coming in.
Right. He actually is the director of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. That's what it's called. And, it just... When did he retire? He retired June of 2003, and his debut was June of 2001. He wrestled for less than 2 years. So basically, 18 months, and had enough concussions that he couldn't do it. Yeah. And so he got out of that and started this, which is fantastic. But it goes to show that and he played football at Harvard too, so it wasn't just wrestling.
No, it wasn't just wrestling.
And he said that he said, "Oh, I remember getting my bell rung at Harvard during a football game, sitting for 2 or 3 plays, and the coach sending me right back out, knowing that I shouldn't be out there." And he goes, "Nobody did anything." And he goes, "I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want him to take me off the field."
Yeah, and that's how a lot of these guys are. It's I don't want to say anything because
I don't want him to think less of me.
If I'm not playing, I'm not making money, or I'm losing my job.
Right.
I was explaining to my buddy's kids, who are both in high school right now, and one of them actually stopped playing football because he got a couple concussions, and they talked about it, and he decided it wasn't worth continuing, so he stopped. But we were talking about the protocols for it, and we were talking about Chris Chandler from the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember him getting knocked out, getting 2 concussions in one game, and going back. Like, he kept getting knocked out. They'd wake him up and put him back in the game.
Yeah.
He kept going back in. And Jim McMahon was another one. I remember him getting 2 concussions in a game.
Oh, yeah.
And going back in.
I mean, and Jim McMahon is in bad shape now. Like, he had some issues then in '85 when he was with the Bears, but now there's issues that prevent him from, functioning on a 100% level. I can tell you my youngest brother, who is 25, just turned 25 in January, he wrestled in college for Bloomsburg and Shippensburg. He had 1 concussion, and then I guess it was like they did all the 4 weeks or whatever the required is. He went back, took the test. The very first time he wrestled, boom, happened again. The doctor said, "You're not doing it again." He goes, "You're done. I'm not medically clearing you because I don't want you to have lasting effects. You are 21 years old. You have 80 years, we have 75 years left, 50 years left, whatever, and it just, he had to retire. I say retire, but, basically he had to stop wrestling and playing contact sports because, one tap to the head the wrong way and, he doesn't remember stuff, or, he blacks out, and it's scary. So, I mean, I'm sure I had some. I could tell you I know I had at least 1 or 2 from high school wrestling and high school football. But, it's just kind of, it wasn't, in the 90s, nobody said anything about it. It was just like, all right, well, get up, go talk to the trainer. The trainer's going to, give you a glass of water and test your eyes to make sure you can follow the finger, and then they're going to send you right back out.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's pretty much all it was. So, it's a whole different world now, which is a good thing. So yeah, it's been a bit of a depressing week for wrestling. I will mention, and this is just me saying this, I finally got to watch Resurrection of Jake the Snake.
Which I was gonna mention when we were talking about the Brett stuff, because
right.
I remembered you saying you were.
And I'll be honest, it was powerful. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out on iTunes, Netflix. It's now on Amazon Prime. Check it out.
Is it on Netflix now?
I believe it's on Netflix, or it's going to be on Netflix soon. I know it's on Prime because I actually bought it digitally. It was $5 to rent or $10 to buy it. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy it for $10 rather than, rent it for 24 hours or whatever. So,
sure.
But it's fantastic. I mean, it really does show him at that vulnerable state when they first found him, where like he was 350 pounds or whatever it was, to the very last thing they show is his Hall of Fame induction. and it's to see, from point A to point B. It's two different people. They show a lot. They show a lot of the footage of him doing the indie stuff where he's like fall over drunk and not good. But it was very, very powerful to watch because it kind of gave you that. Oh, he gave you 35 years of his life, and you really don't realize how bad things can get. Yeah. And they even said the video guy, John Yu, I think is his name, was like, I was ready to pull up to this really big, nice house, and it was a ranch house that was falling apart. And it's like, well, that's what he lives at because he has no money. Because once the money's gone, the money's gone.
Yeah.
You can only make so much money doing autographs, especially when you're drunk. So, but if you haven't had a chance to check it out, do yourself a favor. It's about an hour and a half long, but it is fantastic.
Definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it. It gets referenced in a lot of different things. They were talking about it on satellite radio the other day, and it just keeps getting brought up about how good it is. So I definitely need to check it out. And it's kind of, for it to kind of be that sequel to
Beyond the Mat.
Beyond the Mat.
Yeah, they even mention Beyond the Mat in it because there's times where he, has slip-ups and goes back to drinking or whatever, and it's like they mention like that he had a really rough time with Beyond the Mat because of what they did to him. Basically, they put him in a corner and were like, talk about how terrible your life is and all the awful life choices you've made. And then they put it on video and they sold it. And they made millions of dollars off of it, and he made nothing. And so he became very, it's not funny, but it's interesting to see that he's such a shell of what you think. And that a guy of that size and of that he is one of those guys from my childhood watching wrestling days. I didn't care if he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was amazing. He would do those interviews where he didn't need to be the Warrior, where he was like, and like, talking about crashing the Hulkamania jet and, talking about the stars and whatever the hell else he talked about. He would just talk in this voice.
And he was almost talking a whisper.
Right, and they even mentioned that. I think they have they have a lot of people in the wrestling biz interviewed, JR and some of those guys where they're like, Goldust gets interviewed. I'm sorry, Dustin gets interviewed, and he's like, you know what? If you care about professional wrestling and you want to be a pro wrestler and you've not studied his tapes of his promos, quit now because you don't have the desire. He goes, because if you want to watch promos, he goes, he is not credited for how great his promos were. He goes, because he wasn't that guy that yelled and screamed at you. He did this whispery, gravelly voice, but he cut right through and got to the point. And it was just like, his stuff was fantastic. And I agree. And I remember, when I was a kid, I loved to hate him because he was Jake the Snake when he was a bad guy. But then again, I was like, oh, he's a good guy too. And, I can't even tell you how many times I've DDT'd my brothers. So
and now your one brother has,
Well, that was long before he had his concussions. I don't touch him.
I don't know about that.
And he was like 7, so.
Not fully developed brain in your DDT.
Oh yeah, that.
Fantastic.
I'm self-incriminating now.
Yeah.
But I did it into the couch, so it wasn't like I did it straight on concrete like he did the Steamboat, where you heard that splat and you knew he's out cold. But so if you haven't had a chance, absolutely check it out. Totally worth the time. I watched it Monday night, 7 o'clock, and between different interruptions I had and stuff like that, I missed the first hour all, but I didn't care because I have it DVR'd. But it was so good. It's so well done. And there was talk for some short time that it was being considered for an independent movie Oscar.
Oh.
That's huge. But my guess is that it won't even be nominated at this point if it hasn't been. I guess the nods are already out.
Yeah, the documentary.
Yeah, that's what it is. Short style documentary or something like that. They were in the talks of the possibility of being nominated for that, but he doesn't need that. It's just it was so good, so good. One of the few times you get a documentary like that ends up,
on a positive note.
On a positive note, obviously we know the outcome is, a good thing. So It's not spoiling it really. It's just there's a lot of real shit, like where him and DDP are nose to nose screaming at each other in DDP's house, like over drugs or, stuff he's done. So it's really powerful. So that's my piece on that. You're welcome, Jake and DDP.
With the Daniel Bryan thing and him leaving, and I'm trying to look at this, positively for him that he's going to stay healthy, but then positively maybe for the business is he's opened the doors for guys. I think they wouldn't have never signed AJ Styles if they didn't see how well the Daniel Bryan thing worked.
Right.
And I think now they're going to, there might be opportunities for guys like Jay Lethal to come in. There might be opportunities for some of those guys in Lucha Underground that have been really impressive.
What about like Finn Balor?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, he's the champion of NXT right now, and it's like, if you would have told me 5 years ago, oh yeah, they're gonna hire Prince Devitt, who's all of 5'10" and 170 pounds soaking wet, I would have looked at you and been like, yeah, right, that's a good one.
Yeah, and another example, they just brought in Austin Aries.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Bryan. I agree with Mike that Bryan getting over like he did, definitely opened the door. And I kind of in a way the same way Jericho did, where Jericho kind of opened the door for some smaller guys to get a shot.
Well, yeah, because he was the first one to jump ship, and then Eddie and all those guys, the rest of the light heavyweight division kind of came over. Kidman, those guys.
Yeah.
They had a couple of year run, and whatever. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I hope they can give him a non-wrestling role like they did with Corey Graves. I love Corey Graves on commentary on NXT. He plays such a great part.
Yeah,
but, I mean, I would love to see Daniel Bryan as like general manager, or I mean, just don't stick him with Brie. I mean, obviously they're gonna want him around for the ratings of Total Divas and that kind of stuff, but like, I'd love to see him go to NXT and be a trainer.
Well, that's. Going back to what you just said, another guy that career ended concussions was Corey Graves.
Right.
It was to the point where he had so many, they just said, look, we're not going to allow you to wrestle anymore.
Right.
And then they gave him a shot to be an announcer, and he's killing it. He really is. I love him. He's fantastic. I love what he does before the pay-per-views.
Yes. I love how he plays that classic heel. Like he just...
Yes.
Yeah, he plays that classic Bobby the Brain Heenan style. Like, what are you talking about? What are you looking at? You're not even looking at the fact. Like, I love it.
Yeah, Jesse Ventura, Bobby Heenan.
Yes, he's in that same vein of it helps with the NXT TakeOver stuff when you have I'm trying to think who the face people are because it's changed around. It's that Scott whatever guy. I don't even know. I think they took him off already. And, of course, Byron's up on Raw doing nothing. Sorry, bro. You're terrible. I mean, not Michael Cole terrible, but you're terrible.
He's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I know. And apparently Lawler's now a heel again on commentary. I watched parts of SmackDown, and I was like, oh, classic like 1995, Jerry the King Lawler heel is coming out. And I kind of like it because he was getting really boring where he was still trying to do like those jokes about puppies, and I'm like, Jerry, like you are 66 years old or older. No.
Yeah, and I mean that was part of the joke 20 years ago.
Right. 20 years ago, that was hilarious because it's like, oh, I could believe that. Now it's just like, okay, you're the creepy old dude. No, don't. But he's getting that heel kind of feel to him now that he's permanently on SmackDown.
I always liked a heel Lawler better than a face Lawler.
He's less goofy.
He's less goofy, and it just seems like he's a little bit more almost believable. I've been watching some of the old. I found a guy on YouTube that posts a bunch of the old Memphis stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been watching things, and when you see him try and be the good guy, he says mean shit. He says heel shit as a good guy. And you're like, oh, you should just be this.
Right. Just go all the way.
Right. The and it just works. One of those things I watched, he called Boogie Woogie Jimmy Valiant a fag.
Whoa. Certainly couldn't say that these days. That would just be, you're fired.
It was like early 80s Memphis, and it was
oh, totally.
Like, you come down here looking like some kind of New York City faggot.
Right. Yeah. Well,
ooh, that's
wasn't ready for that. But
and you know what's some of those the early and mid '90s Memphis stuff is when Memphis had that like developmental territory working relationship. So like guys that they weren't pulling out of ECW, they were pulling out of Memphis back then. So you're seeing some of the young guys come up, the early Kurt Angle stuff.
Yeah.
Rikishi working a heel character.
Yeah.
That was, Flex Cavana. I watched his.
Oh, there you go.
Brian Christopher and Flex Cavana teamed up to face Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee.
Bill Dundee. There's a name I haven't heard in forever. Wow. Well, I've been watching SmackDown, or parts of SmackDown, because they've been having AJ Styles wrestle really decent matches on SmackDown. In addition to having good matches, Lawler, I forget which commentator said something about AJ not being a world champion here, so he's not a world class. And Lawler was like, you know what? I've never held the WWE title, but he goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, the amount of titles that are sitting in my house from other territories, he goes, more than make up for the WWE title that I never held, or the Intercontinental belt that I never held, or the tag titles that I never held. He's like, yeah. You talk all you want. He goes, I am world renowned as Jerry the King Lawler. He goes, I don't pay for anything in Memphis. Anything. And he goes, I haven't in 25 years. And I'm like, I totally understand that, And the other nice thing, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's fantastic. AJ knocked a couple of the Miz's teeth out, which I really enjoyed, with a nice backhand, and they even kind of shadow boxed it on Raw where they show his tooth bouncing off his chest and then to the ring floor, and it's just I tell you, if they were smart, they would book now for WrestleMania, Y2J versus AJ Styles versus The Miz. Triple threat match, that'll steal the undercard.
That's what they're setting up. That's absolutely.
I hope that's what they're setting up, because I guess Y2J and AJ are going to have a rematch on Thursday on SmackDown, or did. I didn't read the tapings. But I guess Fastlane, something's going to happen between one of them, and someone's going to interfere, which will set up the WrestleMania match, which would be fantastic. Or if they put the three of them in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, if they do that again, and they're the last three in. Like, you give AJ a push right there. Yeah. Even though he's 37 years old. It doesn't matter. He's new.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next 6 months with all these different people, and Bayley's going to come up eventually. I think sooner than later. They're pushing Sasha. They're pushing Sasha Banks finally. Finally.
And and maybe this is gonna finally be the changing of the guard that we've been waiting for a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
With I mean, yeah, we know the title's getting put back on Reigns at some point.
Probably.
But you've got Reigns and Ambrose, and I'm including Reigns in the in the new blood. I mean, it's as much as we kind of get on it, like he's not the guy we want. He's a fresh face in the title picture.
He's under 30.
You've got Ambrose and Ambrose has been in the title picture. Rollins is coming back soon, I think.
Yeah.
Probably after Mania, but not that far down the road.
Right.
Got they just brought in AJ. Finn Balor's going to be coming up at some point.
Joe.
Kevin Owens is rolling. I would imagine they're going to bring Joe up at some point as well.
Tommy will be back soon.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm kind of hoping that this might be the changing of the guard a little bit. We haven't seen Orton in months. I mean, he's hurt, but he was going to work a smaller schedule anyway.
Cena's going to come back and work a slower schedule. Or at least that's what he's talking about. We're going to get that shift and it's funny because it happened in 96, 97 as well, where it was like that quote-unquote new generation that they tried to push with like Diesel and all those guys who were already in their 30s, kind of started to fade out, and you're like starting to get younger guys come up to take their place.
Yeah.
Not to say that Shawn Michaels was all that much younger, but Hunter was in his 20s.
Yeah, you had that those fresh faces. You had, and then when you had guys come from other companies, like Austin.
Right.
And he didn't. We all know the story there. He didn't catch fire right away either.
Let's see. The Ringmaster thing was forgettable.
Absolutely.
Forgettable. Even DiBiase says that now. DiBiase was like, DiBiase will, if someone asks him, they'll be like, "What were your thoughts on the Ringmaster?" And he'll say, "Worst gimmick ever. The only reason it worked is because of who it was given to."
The Ringmaster thing was such after the ECW stuff that he did.
Right.
Where people were like, "This is the best. This is real.
Right.
Holy shit! This is the stuff that Steve Austin is saying, and the way that he like. I always liked stunning Steve Austin.
So
and
did
then when that happened, I remember watching it, and my brother's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Steve Austin just showed up on ECW, and he
beat the shit out of Mikey Whipwreck. He beat the shit out of Mikey Whipwreck."
Well, no, I remember the very first appearance, there was some kind of crazy ECW backstage stuff going on, where they're just walking around with the camera, and then Austin shows up and starts cutting a Hulk Hogan promo.
Yes. I remember that.
And
I couldn't put it in WCW, brother.
Joey Styles' reaction was like, "Oh my god!" The typical over-the-top Joey Styles.
Steve Austin.
But they would just they wouldn't even put him in a ring. They would just put like Austin at like a folding table in like the back of the bingo parlor and let him talk.
He would be dressed up like Bischoff, and he would have the bongo drum next to him. So it was Bischoff and bongo.
Yes, that was awesome.
So you have Michaels was doing commentary, and then he had the matches with Sandman and Mikey Whipwreck that you're like, this is, and then when he showed up, you're like, oh, what happened to all the cool shit that he was doing? Why isn't he talking? What is it?
Right. Yeah, and then you're like, well, hold on a sec. Because I believe I remember it was probably the summer of like 96 when he debuted as the Ringmaster, and I'm like, that's stunning Steve Austin with shaved head. And I was like, what? Why is he wearing green trunks and doing the $1 million dream? Oh.
Yeah. And why did they pair the two of them up?
It made no sense. I mean,
I'll tell you why somebody must have did it, because they said, Steve Austin, that's the $6 million man.
There you go.
The $1 Million Man.
Vince was probably like, get it, ha! $6 Million Man.
It writes itself.
And Russo was like, I believe you. And Bucky Beaver was like, you got it, boss. Fucking shit. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think we're, as much as everyone complains and the internet wrestling community complains about stuff, I think some things are coming to change, and I hope one of the things is that they stop using the word diva. It is offensive at this point in time because they're not divas. They are wrestlers. They are wrestlers.
This is the first time in
since Alundra Blaze showed up.
The recent memory.
Right.
Recent memory, and I'm that you have women that can actually wrestle.
Right. Like Trish Stratus.
The time to wrestle.
Right.
They're not just putting them in a throw-off 6-woman diva tag match every Monday night just to get them on TV.
Right.
Or one of those women's battle royals.
Oh, those are terrible. I mean, they had one on NXT that was pretty good too, which was pretty fantastic. But you have some decent people down there that are getting good. But I mean, I would love to see Charlotte versus Sasha Banks at WrestleMania and just, steal the show. I don't even care that Rick will be at ringside. I don't care.
That's probably going to be what we're going to see. But between Sasha and Charlotte and Paige and Becky Lynch and Bayley's going to be coming up soon, and not for nothing, I haven't watched NXT in a bit, but that match that Bayley had with what's her name,
Nia Jax,
was
amazing.
Yeah, and it was. That was the best. I think that was the best match on the card.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it. I don't think there was much, because I think Cruz faced Corbin and it was terrible. Because Corbin.
And it was Balor Joe.
And that was a good match, but it wasn't a great match.
No.
I agree with you 100%. The story told by Bayley versus Nia Jax was amazing, because I totally thought, oh, she's facing Nia Jax. Nia Jax is walking out of London with the title. That's it.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, okay. And there was a couple of ref bumps, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. We're gonna do it cheaply. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. But I think we have a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
In general, because once this injury plague, which now added Sheamus, broke his arm. So if you didn't know that, Sheamus is on the shelf too. So
he's another one that kind of got that injury bug where he just he gets back, they give him a little bit of a push, and you get some momentum, and
you get hurt. Yep. So it'll be. I'll tell you, I'm really excited for Rollins to come back to see what they do with him, because I really feel like he needs to be the face of faces. Like, he needs to be the White Ranger that they have him set up as. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he needs to be that guy that is just amazing, and he needs to change his finisher over to that Phoenix Splash. Like, that needs to be the finish. Forget about the foot stomp or the curb stomp. Forget about the pedigree. Forget about all that. Just have him do the damn Phoenix Splash to finish people off. And if you don't trust him with his knee, give him something better. He's fantastic. I don't think I could complain about any of his matches. He even made Sting look pretty good. And other than the neck and back injury, but I don't believe that's anybody's fault particular. That's a 57-year-old man hitting, and getting whiplash. It's what happens. Your body gets old and you can't handle that kind of shit anymore. But
so I think the future looks bright.
It does.
It's kind of my summation of this whole thing.
Yeah. I look forward to Sami Zayn coming up to the main roster. I want to see him and AJ Styles go at it. Shit, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, and that would be amazing. And this is a little off topic, but it was great to see that El Generico reference on Monday night.
Yes, absolutely.
From Kevin Owens' tweet.
Yes.
About Daniel Bryan. I was like, wow, they actually had a Generico reference on Raw.
Right. I totally loved it. Which just made me think of something kind of minor, but I think it's major. Apparently, they are forming a network-only show for the light heavyweights. Apparently, they want, and I don't know if it's just a tournament or if it's going to be a reoccurring show, but they want to start showing more of the smaller guys doing their thing, and I think that's kind of cool.
I'm down for that.
Maybe have Daniel Bryan host that show.
I don't know.
But
if he was like the commissioner or something.
Right. Right, like when they had Mick Foley as commissioner of Saturday morning, whatever they had. I don't know. They always tape it before SmackDown, and I'd be like, what's this show? Oh, this is the show where they don't show camera shots of face punches because they don't want kids to think it's okay to punch people in the face. And I'm like, whatever.
Alrighty.
Yep. So, but I'm trying to think. We have Fastlane in a week and a half?
Yeah.
I think we should let that develop a little bit more before we even bother talking about it.
Well, yeah. I just I figure the next time we get together will probably be after that.
Probably.
So we'll have a number one contender for Triple H's world title, which is still weird to say in 2016. Especially since I think he's up to what, 12 now? So maybe he'll be the one that beats Ric Flair.
I always thought it should have been him if anybody was going to, but
I can't argue that. I really can't. But
because like most, like a good handful have seen his title reigns. They're like
10 seconds,
hour.
yeah. He got cash. I think I'd like to do some. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll do a small project for the next time. Is since you're such a big fan of the Money in the Bank contract thing still. I'm going to go through and find out who has been cashed in on the most. And I feel like it's John Cena.
It might be John Cena, but I'll say.
I just feel like he wins the title and then he'd get cashed in on, and it's like, oh, that's 12. Oh, that's 13. Oh, that's 14. Oh, that's 15. One more, and he ties it up, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Wait. Hold on a second here. Back that fucking train up here. The last 4 title reigns he's had has been the total of 12 minutes. No. We're not going to allow that. Like, that doesn't count. But it does.
It does. But, all right. I think that is where
that's all I got.
Yeah, I ain't got much else.
It was too depressing of a week in wrestling.
It was a very depressing week in wrestling.
Yeah.
But, we're ending on a positive note. We're ending with the future being bright.
Yes. We're trying.
We're trying, at least. We're hoping.
We're trying not to be curmudgeon-y old men.
No, it's not always easy.
It's like, there will be a bright light, goddammit.
Put the knife down, Tom.
Sorry.
Put it down. Step away from the knife.
So I channeled Skinner there for a minute.
You did. It was weird.
Yeah. Okay, let's be honest. In the 4 years you've known me, when does something not weird come from me? And with that said,
you know what? I'm gonna even go. I'm even gonna go one better. When does something with you not come back to Skinner?
Or Barry Horowitz.
Or Barry Horowitz.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Somewhere we're gonna have to find a Skinner versus Barry Horowitz match.
Oh, I'm gonna
do a dedicated commentary for it.
There we go. Kind of like our buddies over at Red Card Headbutt.
Found it.
Anyway. Of course you did.
I Googled.
All right. You Googled Barry Horowitz versus Skinner?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're gonna have to red card headbutt it, and
that's probably red card headbutted. I love it. All right.
All right. On that note, we're wrapping up here. We'll be back in a week and a half, 2 weeks with our wonderful Fastlane coverage. But you know where to find us. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. You can check us out at the Channel Z Podcasts at WordPress or channelzpodcasts.wordpress.com, Facebook.com/Channel Z Podcasts. If you want to talk about Barry Horowitz with Tom, feel free to email.
You can look for him on.
Feel free to talk about Barry Horowitz versus Skinner at channelzpodcasts@gmail.com. So on that note, I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Tom.